God. I don't believe in God. God's a man in the sky. Couldn't possibly be a thing. Or could it? That's the question we're asking today on the show. Now, if you've just joined me from the previous video, have I just gone and changed into a shirt? Maybe I have. Maybe I haven't. Have I done all of these back to back, one after another, slightly changing my hair in varieties? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I haven't. Maybe it's been over a series of days. Whatever. They're sort of here and there, aren't they? But yes, gods. A lot of people don't believe in gods. A lot of people don't have any time for even religion at all. And I could see why, because, at a glance, it seems preposterous. And probably for, a lot of good reasons. But there's a lot of good truths in religion. And there's a lot of good people and all these sorts of things. As bashed about as it gets. So, from a young age, I was going to be, being a bit of a daredevil, a bit of a god. No, I don't know. Just, I wanted to, I didn't want to just dismiss it for multiple reasons. One, because I wanted to just see if there was anything to it, because it's interesting enough, and everyone else was saying, nah, it's nothing. So I was like, screw it. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna check it out. Yeah. Two, because if everyone forever has been worshipping and they're dedicating their lives to various gods and recording things and dying and all these sorts of things, there might be some relevance to it. Especially seeing as a lot of really smart people have believed in God, or gods, or religion, or theology, etc. And then finally, just because, I do feel some sort of like pride, not pride in God, but, some sort of like deep-seated respect and faith, I guess you'd call it. And, I am an English Christian person born in England in a Christian family, went to Christian schools. Like, you might be surprised that one of us is actually Christian. A lot of Christian schools take on a lot of different people. Usually, like rough people, foreign people, people who get kicked out of every other school, they'll get taken on to the Christian school. They're usually not quite as big, and they're completely different. So what a lot of people don't know, completely different type of schools. Catholic schools are funded completely by the church, I believe, and they aren't funded by the government nearly as maybe still quite substantially, but I don't think nearly as much as government schools. So when I was at school, when I was like really small, I'm not saying I used to get hit with a yardstick or something, or whatever, like had to eat chalk or something. But it was still like blackboards and like big slammy desks and stuff. And it was only when I got to like probably the last 3 years that we started getting like normal tables and stuff, which was interesting. And like, but it was whiteboards for a while, and then there was all the interactive whiteboards of a thing which come in, which is weird. School is a weird thing, isn't it? But yeah. Hey, at least we weren't getting beaten up by the teachers, because before, I don't know, 70s maybe? God knows. Catholic schools were bad places to be, especially if you live there. But anyway, we're not talking about that. That's probably another strong reason why people do not like religion on up here, and do not like God, because bad experiences and stuff like that, and getting beaten and all this sort of thing, and just the disruption it can cause, and the disputes and stuff. Realistically, I agree with you. There's no time for it. But we're not talking about Catholicism today. We're not talking about education. We're not talking about. We might touch on war, because this is what I'm getting to. Gods, for a long time, I didn't believe in gods. I believed in God, and I did think he was the resounding element, the connection of all of life and stuff. And I had this sort of understanding that God was not only, I can't remember what my old belief of God was, but it was pretty progressive. It wasn't what you might expect from, what you might expect from the standard view of life. But yeah, I think it was like, oh yeah, God is like love and God is all these things, and it's just this sort of like absolute perfection or something. It's the way that we're supposed to sort of go, and it's the best route of life. But also it's like the resounding elements that holds life together and all these sorts of things. And then recently I started to learn about like patterns and all these sorts of things. And then I thought to myself, what if God and gods are actually, they're all absolutes and they're all patterns of things, and they're all sort of like beyond archetypes, they're gods. And they might be quite hard to perceive and understand because unless you're deep in the heart of it, and even if you are deep in the heart of a moment, it's quite hard to predict and know the nature of it. But there is an absolution to things, and it's quite hard to understand these things because a lot of times they're tied up in mysticism and metaphor and all this sorts of thing, and it's still easy to dismiss them. But the way I see it is like, people find it so hard to understand these things because they are quite what's the word? Like metaphorical maybe, or something like that, or like, I don't know, something like that. Like intangible and all these sort of weird things. But then I say, like, what about death? Because I'm saying like, what I'm saying is people get distracted because they're so tied up in metaphors and stuff. They say they can't possibly a man in the sky throwing lightning bolts down. Do you know what I mean? That's just that doesn't happen. Okay, at least I've never seen it. But then I say, what about death? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no escaping death. Death exists, and you could potentially say there is a god of death because death works in certain ways. That's what I'm getting. And death is portrayed as a skeleton with a scythe, but you don't go, oh, I don't believe in death. Yeah, death's not a man with a scythe. Death isn't this because you're going to die, don't you? But the reason it's so tied up in art and all these sort of things, and it has this sort of respect, and I've always respected death as a character as well, not because it's death, but because he's portrayed to me, I've always seen him as he's like a nice character. He's like wise. He's nice. He's like humble and caring, and he like helps like survival, and like even in like the worst times of like plague and famine and stuff and starvation or whatever, there's beauty to be had, and there's understanding, and death is like gracious, and he's there to care for you and love you and take you away and all this sorts of thing, or maybe to help you carry on. And that's why I feel like there's such art and respect around the character of death, so that people have strength in death. And I think God's a bit like that as well. God's tied up in a lot of those sorts of things because it's to give people power and enlightenment and glory to the people. And I think a lot of rich people don't want the public to believe in God because they don't want people to have things for free. They don't want people to have riches. They don't want people to be doing whatever they want. They want people to be working for them and miserable and depressed so that they can put the blinders on and have them focused, because God is riches, God is glorious, God is magnificent, majesty, and majesty isn't for the rich, majesty is for everyone. And see to that what you will. But so other gods, Christianity, they say there is one God, there's one true God. And I will agree with that. But I'll also say there are other gods as well. Now, in the past, people had their gods. They had all different types of gods, Mars and different war gods and different love gods, etc., etc. Maybe you can see where I'm going with this. They would have their fights, they'd have their disputes. My god's the best, this god's the best, this is the best way of life, this is how you live life. And it's a bit like politics, but in more of a spiritual way. Because maybe they did record the behaviour ends of these absolutions. You know, if you fight so many wars, you might start to see the patterns that sort of come out, and you say, well, this is the god of war. You know, this, if you do these certain things, these are the absolutions. This is just my theory, right? This isn't necessarily true, but this is the refinement of war, you know, or this is the sea god or something. And yes, there's a lot of unquestionability to it. Maybe you can't predict all of it, but there's patterns to it, and there's an absolution to it, and there is not a code, but it's a god. That's what I'm saying. And it's not gods aren't just gods. But I'm saying God is like, it's like a number. It's like a word for a number. It's like, it is a god. Do you know what I mean? It is like an idea, but it's beyond an idea. It's like an idea out of our control, and you can do things potentially, and if you understand God, or the gods speaking to you or something, or someone who is spirited with these certain demigods or angels of death or angels of war or angels of love, they might understand, and they might archetypally behave in the same way, which pursues the followings of the god, you see. And you know, I think where Christianity came in is once they realised that there might have been like a pattern to life, or maybe how like they were like, well, what we want to do is we want to take all of the resounding features of all of those gods, right, and all of those things, which a lot of the time end in chaos, disruption, and death, and all these sorts of things, and they say we want to absolute that even more, you know, and find the god of all gods, and we'll just call that God. And we'll make all of the subsidiaries and the characteristics which are the most benevolent and powerful and good, and we'll make them angels and stuff. Or maybe they are angels already, and they do exist, and the love gods are different to the love that like the one true God shows and stuff. So, you know, what I'm saying is, even as a Christian, where Christianity is what I believe, well, you know, the Abrahamic God or whatever, or because maybe what I'm saying isn't even Christianity, do you know what I mean? Maybe it's something else, but it just ties in. I'm a Christian, you know, and maybe like Jesus was Jewish, but he was actually a Christian. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm like that, but you know, I'm not saying I'm better than Jesus or anything. And we go to Jesus all day long because he was obviously quite prevalent, talking about something decent. Anyway, but this is potentially new stuff. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm back. So I think what I was just saying was, it's potentially, this is new stuff, right? Or new understanding, or new reinterpretation, perception, whatever you want to call it, maybe even new ideas, which, you know, is always a good thing, isn't it? It's not going to get me in any trouble with anyone, anywhere, around the world, or something. But yeah, which is an issue actually, because a lot of religious people are nutters, honestly, aren't they? They're mad and horrible. So, you know, obviously what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to be progressive and, you know, understanding, and try and give new light to all manner of people. But anyway, back to angels and love and all this sorts of thing. So what I'm trying to say is that though there is one God, which is, you know, the God of life, whatever, there are potentially other gods, you know, and whether or not it's a good thing to behave in these things doesn't mean that they shouldn't be understood. Yeah, which is interesting. But there's a lot missing out in the Bible, I think, for good reason. And even if you start reading, because obviously the Bible, I don't know if you know, but it means like the library or something. It's like a collection of books which all tie in together about God and Jesus and stuff like that. If you start reading other texts, because there's a lot of texts which aren't even in the biblical canon, or different versions, all these sorts of things, Now, if you start reading some of them are sort of tied into not skepticism, maybe mysticism, stuff like this, and a sort of they're actually like secret, I guess, and they're actually because maybe a lot of things, the way they're tied up in metaphors and the way that they don't want people to be so blunt, because there's a lot of power in understanding. Do you know what I mean? They're going to tell everyone how to make bombs and stuff like that, because you go out and you do some real damage. So if there are ways to even just incite sort of feelings in people, they might not want to really play that out too predominantly. So it takes a course of real true understanding before you start to understand the is it doctrine, maybe, like the codes, basically, in how a lot of these texts are written. And it's not necessarily for a good thing, because if you think about it, a lot of the saints were martyrs, which is awful, really, isn't it? You have to do a certain amount of miracles, or you have to be a martyr, which is terrifying, because you just think, how many other people died those ways? And maybe that's another reason why people aren't too interested in God and prefer to live a naive life, but people still die, people. Maybe it's not a good thing to sort of look at that, but who knows, I don't know. You should have some sort of faith in God, shouldn't you? Trust that God is the all-powerful, maybe, but it doesn't mean that you want to feud with anyone. So that's God's, I guess, and we can go into it more. It's a brief introduction to the possibility of God and gods, saying that they're patterns, they're understanding, and science is similar. Science is just a record of everything. Potentially, what I'm saying is God is potentially not only the record, but some sort of absolution, maybe. But yeah. I think, I don't know, I'll leave it on this, that, they say God works in mysterious ways or whatever. I think God also works and all gods work in, naive ways, and it's potentially better as well in a lot of ways, because you people can, obviously, as I was saying with a lot of other things, you can live these like characteristical lifestyles, and you can still be a good person, and you could be an atheist and you can still be a good person. And I would go as far as to say God is working in you, know what I mean? If you're being loving and you're being like charitable and you're being helpful, you're being like powerful, and you're sticking up for people and you're doing all this, that and the other, and you're an atheist, I'd still say, you're a messenger of God in ways. But this is what I'm saying. If you are an atheist, maybe it's time to just reevaluate the potentiality of God and take it not with a pinch of salt, but try and take it with a different perspective, because they tell these things for a reason, because it's helpful, it's powerful, and it's loving, and because a lot of people have gone through the same things. So, but it can open some dangerous doors, and you're taking on a responsibility which you don't have to do. So it can be rewarding, but it can also be taxing, honestly. So I even go as far as to say, in many circles of life, you don't want to know about gods or gods, and it's better to leave a naive life, because we're still human, we're still in the human experience, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, if this has sparked your curiosity, I would just say pray, go to church, be around other people who are just any other people, good people even, or don't think that you can just work it out all at once. Although you might become inspired, doesn't mean you're going to be right. Just have some sort of trust in God and faith in God, and over time, answers will come to you, hopefully. And there will be times where you will have a thought, and you'll be thinking of it for a long time, and you won't know whether it's right or wrong. And then one day, it'll get proved to you, not through a miracle or God, because that could still be delusion, but like actual, not like scientific proof, but just like a little clunk will happen. If you do a certain amount of maths equations, and then you do a back equation or something, or you do another equation on top of that to solidify it, like that moment, that feeling is incredible. It's really nice. It's because it's this feeling of like reassurance, of understanding, and you're like, wow, that actually really works. Just because it works doesn't mean it's the best, but they say the one true God is the best God and the most all-powerful God. So that's the agenda, at least, and I don't really see anything wrong with that, honestly. I've got very bright in it. It's got very bright, but I don't see anything wrong with having the best thing, So yeah, doesn't mean I'm gonna give up my gods if something turns out to be better. Does it? I don't know. Is that an oxymoron? I don't know. But, well, no, it's not actually, because there are ways, and Satanists and other exploitative sort of things, money, because you could even say there's like gods in money, because there's behaves in certain patterns, in certain ways you can influence the market and stuff like that. So there could be money gods in that. So there are ways to exploit power, but it's not right, and it doesn't help the greater picture, and it's potentially not even the best, because it might work in the shortfall, but you're not potentially the only person who's going to do that. And because once you take it onto yourself and you say, I'm going to take this is my power, if everyone starts doing that, there will be a rise of a god, and it'll be destructive, and that's not necessarily going to help you, because that stuff will start to die, especially seeing as the Christian God, who is also has literally everything. It's like all encompassing. It's also the most rewarding. So, what I was saying is, and people will do it for you for free out of like joy and passion, because it is the right experience. It's the enjoyable experience. So, if you're someone out there who goes, well, I'm going to utilize God, and I'm going to turn it into a gun or a hammer, and I'm going to go jack up the place, and I'm going to get all those riches for myself. All those riches will be provided for you. We will give it to you, and we'll keep giving it to you. And if you rob us like one time or something, that's not going to help it. It's just going to set everyone back, and you're going to make a cheap buck, when realistically, there's no reason why you couldn't have been just lapping it up and relaxing and stuff, because they say Jesus is the servant king, don't they? He washes the feet of people, and all this sorts of stuff. I mean, that doesn't sound too bad to me. So I don't know, maybe you're like, I've seen the light, I believe. It's interesting, isn't it? I guess. More of a scientific view on God, I guess. Maybe. If you think I'm mad, then fair enough, and I'd like to read that opinion. Maybe not if you're just going to try and crush my soul. I don't really fancy that. My spirit, whatever. But I'm still open to interpretation and opinion. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it gives you some sort of idea to think, yeah, you know what, I am going to take another look at opinions, because I think affirming opinion is dangerous, because you know you could be convincing yourself that you're right when you're not. You're quite obviously wrong. So it's always good to take a restocking of moral agenda and ideology, you know, because why not? You know, you don't want to be ignorant. You don't want to be missing out things, do you? So thank you, I guess, and that's God's, in my opinion, and I'm understanding it currently, and the one true God as well. Well, we can go more into God, hopefully one day, and yeah, it's great. It's quite an experience. But I don't want to come out all like, blah, 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 this is the best thing. Oh, you're gonna love this, because I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Because it's brilliant. It's amazing. Well, thank you anyway, and enjoy the rest of the show. It's going to come up. I think what we're going to talk about next is Angels and Dragons, which you know, if I talked about that initially, you might be like, this guy is absolutely insane. But now, where I've said that, you know, God is potentially like not mathematical, but like a pattern of thing, it might be more palatable to hear these next fanciful ideas. So let's do. I'm gonna have a cup of tea, and we'll come back and we'll do Angels and Dragons, and I'll be wearing another outfit, you know, because I've picked out a certain amount of outfits, so I'd like to wear them, and hopefully you can comment on them and you can tell me, oh, you look like a complete tool. You need to get some better clothes, my friend. And yeah, all right.